Breakup.
By J.E. Tria.
Why are we in your room?
Because you're trying to hide from your ex-boyfriend, and there's no way he'll come looking for you in my room. We're not close enough friends for that. Jill inclined her head, taking her first step inside.
Fair point.
Shinta flicked on the light as she passed him, one foot keeping the door ajar. Do you want me to keep the door open?
Well, if I'm going to hide, I will do it correctly.
Fair point. He closed the door with a thud, turned the lock for good measure, and followed her inside. Jill stood in the middle of his white, narrow, rectangular heaven, hands slightly on her hips. She turned to him, a curious glint in her eyes. Shinta's breath caught, his heart hammering inside his chest.
Your room back home cannot be this clean, can it?
Jill said. Shinta cleared his throat and tried to grin. You couldn't see an inch of the floor with all the trash and things.
And you have several portraits of your face up on the wall, don't you?
She smiled teasingly at him. It's part of the job description, he retorted, scowling. It reminds me of my physical flaws.
What flaws?
Jill demanded, rolling her eyes. Shinta smirked. Deciding against air conditioning, he pushed his white sofa bed, the only furniture in the room apart from the big white closet, to face the terrace. He threw open the narrow double doors and pulled away the curtains so that a light, hot breeze crept inside the room. He sat on the bed, Jill plopping down beside him, stretching her long legs next to his. She laid her head down on his pillow, her gaze easily caught by the clear view of the night sky. She was searching the velvet blanket above for stars, one of her hobbies, her thoughts far away from him. He wondered what had happened on that night she left her phone in Kim's car. He wondered how Kim had broken her again, causing her to get lost in long stretches of silence, such as this. You know, it would take forever to count stars that don't want to be seen, Shinta said when her silence stretched on. Jill's gaze remained upwards when she spoke.
I always liked the concept of forever. You know, the constancy, the certainty.
She paused, closing her eyes.
But maybe forever does not exist. Maybe there's just today, and last night, 7 years ago, then there's tomorrow again. And it spins until it fades to black and we all die.
That's a very romantic theory, Shinta piped in, trying a cheerfully sarcastic voice. Jill shook her head slowly, her closed eyes framed by wisps of lashes.
Life is not a romantic movie. The boy gets the girl, and he leaves the girl, and they don't live happily ever after.
Shinta pinched her cheek. Look at you, turning cynical. You must be terribly damaged. Jill's eyes flitted open.
That's why I returned.
Shinta took in her blank smile and realized that wasn't a very good joke. I have my own theory, he said quickly, about forever.
Okay, tell me.
It was Shinta's turn to look at the black expanse of heaven as he marshaled his thoughts. I think it's just a problem of naming convention. Forever just sounds so serious, like there's so much at stake. Like you die if you don't make it, and if you don't make it, everything that happened, good and bad, disappears with the end. So much worry and pressure. He turned to see her listening aptly to him. So I'm just going to count it on a day-to-day basis.
Until when?
Jill asked. Until it runs out, he answered. I would fight so that days don't end, but when they do, then okay. I've tried, so it's okay.
So how long does that take?
See? You're curious too. He turned to face her, and that was a mistake. His cheek landed on the pillow inches away from a safe distance from her. He always found himself leaning close to her, stealing a feel of her hair under his chin, a graze of his breath on the line of her nose, the feel of her cheek under his fingers. Maybe to test himself. Maybe because from the moment he met her, the heat and light he felt from her was like gravity pulling at his core. He caught her gaze, her eyes dark as deep night, and knew this time he was failing the test. He cupped her nape with his hand and pulled her head toward him, his mouth crashing into hers. He caught a glimpse of the shock in her eyes before she squeezed them shut and kissed him back, her lips parting at the first urging of his tongue. One slim leg wrapped around his waist, her arm clutching tight around his shoulder. She pushed him away and Shinta panicked. But she rolled over and now she was straddling him. She pressed herself against his chest, fingers through his hair as her mouth consumed his. His fingers curled around her waist, arms crushing her to him. Fire shot inside him, shocking every nerve in his body, kindling a thought in his head. "No," he muttered.
No?
Jill murmured. "No," he repeated. He clasped her wandering hand and pulled her up, catching her face for a rough kiss. Then he pulled away again, creating a good foot of white sofa bed between them. He lay on his back, fixed his eyes on the purple sky, mastering his breathing, summoning sheer will after what felt like an eternity of struggle. He turned back to her. Jill was smiling, fire and light dancing in her big dark eyes.
Is it because the terrace door is open? Are you cold?
"Cold is the last thing I am right now," he said with a choked laugh.
You can't be a virgin.
She continued her teasing. He held her gaze, breathing in and out deeply, taming her humor and the fire inside him. He refused to make the obvious mistakes. He had to do right by this girl. "I'm sorry I said you were damaged," he said, glad to hear his voice sounded even. "You're not."
Of course I am.
"Why would you want to be perfect? Who is?" "I'm not." He smiled, daring to touch her again as his heartbeat slowed. One soft kiss on her bare shoulder, one hand to cup her cheek. "I love you, you know." How easy it was to finally say it.
Songs of Our Breakup.
By J.E. Tria.